Hello there. Boba and I would like to welcome you back to Tatooine for this walkthrough and overview for my 2022 Star Wars Day short film, Boba's Quest, inspired by the Disney Plus series, The Book of Boba Fett. In this video, I will provide a more detailed look at my toy box design and layout. Here are a few screenshots from Chapter 6, when Mando was arriving at Boba's palace, that I used for inspiration in designing my toy box. In the first screenshot, we get a good detailed look of the in-ground hangar under the palace with the surrounding rugged desert terrain. The second screenshot gives us a good look at the hangar entrance with the tower standing to the right side. There is a second tower on the left side buried in the terrain, probably the result of a landslide at some time, but I elected not to include this tower in my design. The final screenshot gives us a view from inside the hangar. The lighting is dim, but I was able to make out the details of the ribbed walls near the hangar door, the metal grates in the sandy floor, and the small arched openings at floor level on either side of the hangar, with the larger arched openings on the level above. So I started my build with the hangar and hangar door. The terrain was built up around the hangar, and I added the rooms and caves to the rear of the hangar later. Alright, let's proceed with the walkthrough. I placed a trigger area here at the toy box spawning point, and I have this connected to a player counter, which is the first time that I ever experimented with and used the toy. It's a useful toy for controlling elements of the game that depend upon the number of players in the game. In this case, I use it to make all players blue team when player 2 joins the game, since this is a cooperative toy box, and it will clear all players from blue team if player 2 drops out. I also use it to control whether there are 1 or 2 banthas in the toy box depending on the status of player 2. Moving on, I have a little area over here that was not in my Boba's Quest short film. This is Luke's cave, which is based on a deleted scene that was going to be the original opening scene of Return of the Jedi. In that scene, Luke is in a cave where he completes the work on his green lightsaber before handing it over to R2-D2 for safekeeping. While there is no logic for this in my save game for Boba's Quest, I have another save game here with an identical build that does include some logic for Luke's green lightsaber that I intend to be part of a larger series of toy boxes that follows Return of the Jedi, including my already completed Battle at the Sarlacc Pit challenge. I connected a series of stalactite caves to create a small maze for Luke to work his way through until arriving at this back area of the cave containing a scroll. So the idea is that when Luke finds and reads this scroll of ancient Jedi knowledge, he can complete construction of his green lightsaber, and he is rewarded with the lightsaber pack. If anyone has any additional ideas of what I can include in this toy box that leads up to this point, leave a suggestion in the comment section below. Alright, we're back in the Boba Quest version of the toy box now, so we'll continue with the walkthrough. We'll come over here to this walkway, this pathway that leads up through the cliffs here to the palace entrance. And I thought this came out pretty cool. It's a cool effect using a replayer. So the track pieces are set to the Boonta Eve theme, and then when you lay them in with a replayer and then clear the replayer, you have a fantasy terrain, a rock piece here, a little added visual appeal. So when you clear the replayer, you can come back in, put in the cliff pieces, and then do a playback on your replayer, which lays the track back in, and it makes the edges blend in seamlessly with the sides of the cliff pieces, so it looks like a quite natural walkway leading up to the palace entrance. Another little small fantasy terrain piece there set to Tatooine. You have a Womp Rat running around for a little extra fun. Wouldn't be Tatooine without a Womp Rat. And then you see there some stones sticking up through the surface of the track pieces. That's the last two, the very top of the last two, the last pair of cliff pieces. So over here we have a orange tang and the wart over here from Return of the Jedi. Of course, a little friend over here on the right side is quite safe from being eaten by the wart on his rock there. So an idea here is you can ring the doorbell and then maybe have a trigger area that will then connect the player to another toy box for like an interior build or design of the palace. So we'll take a quick pan around here at the overall layout. Used a lot of different types of sloping pieces of various size. You can see a lot of exposed edges just to add to the rocky, rough terrain of the desert terrain surrounding the palace on Tatooine. So a lot of different variety that you can use to do it your own way. See back down the path here. And there again you can see on the left and right those stones are actually the very top of the last pair of cliff pieces. The stones are sticking up through the racetrack pieces. Then add some climbing terrain pieces around that the players can run around and play on. Maybe just randomly throw in some enemies from the toy editor. You don't have to use any logic. Scatter a bunch of enemies around and you can go hunt them down and fight. Maybe a good way to level up a character. Lots of space here to run around and interesting terrain features. So it's always a good idea to spare a little bit of memory in your toy boxes if you can afford it, just throw in random enemies or random objects and have a little bit of fun. Well, Boba kicking the Womp Rat there. I hope nobody reports him to the Animal League for Womp Rat abuse. So proceeding back down the path and get another final look at how these track pieces with the replayer blend in seamlessly and nicely with the cliff pieces on either side. It does take a little bit of planning out to get your spacing right. You know, I have the terrain blocks behind the cliff pieces that kind of defined where the track pieces and the cliff pieces were going to go to make the corridor, the pathway up through the cliffs to the palace entrance. So come over here and there's a radar marker over here, and this is actually what starts the events. So it's has a locator set to a dynamic trigger, and I think I used a distance of 10. So when you enter that trigger area, it gives the message of farewell as Boba sets his bantha free, and then when he exits, that's what starts the events with the enemies and gives you the prepare for enemy attack message, as well as generates the enemies that come out of this little outpost here, guard outpost, and those enemies are generated from that locator right there. So if I had run around the front side of that dune instead of the back side, you would have seen those enemies generating there, and it actually kind of looks like they're coming out the door, so that's kind of cool. I tried putting a camera, played around with putting a camera view on that. It really wasn't necessary, and it just kind of interrupted the flow of the game. So it's something you can do to add a little cutscene, but I elected to not use it. We have the button casing here from the Marvel Battlegrounds play set. So what's cool about that is it has the time delayer on it that goes up to 15 seconds. So you can set that between 0 and 15 seconds. And we have this one cliff piece here that players can climb on, that maybe players that don't have climbing abilities. For two-player, I think Core is a good matchup for Boba. Here is the collectible for the blueprint that Boba collects. I guess the idea is there, once the final enemy drops that blueprint, Boba has the plans to the palace and knows where to go and what to do to get his ship back, Slave One. And both of these button casings with the level starter are deactivated or closed, as is the terminal up here. So Boba has to defeat all the enemies and collect the key card to have the code in order to slice that terminal to unlock the button casings, as well as deactivate the force field, the ray shielding that's around his ship. So we use this barrier block here for that, and that's placed in with a replayer so that when he hacks the terminal, it just clears the replayer and removes all the effects. So I have a couple of sound effects, a sound effects for the blast when it knocks him back, a sound effect for the little alarm going off, a visual effect there for the electrical discharge, and a physical effect that from the action enforcer that actually provides the knockback that knocks him down. I'm just using hitting the A button there to recover. Otherwise, if you don't recover, it'll actually just knock them flat to the ground. So I think that adds a pretty cool effect, and got the idea to use that barrier block as a force field from Professor Toybox's Age of Ultron toy box. Okay, we'll continue with the tour here with the cargo room. And these doors here are the trigger areas and the logic set with the sound effects for when the door opens and closes. And then this trigger area here is what generates the enemies in that cargo room. That's the locator there for the door sound effects. This door doesn't open, doesn't have the trigger area, but it does have the logic laid in if I ever want to change that in the future. Same with this door here. There's enough space on the opposite side of that door to add a room about the size of the kitchen. And then just some cargo containers here. I thought this little open container here might be fun to try and draw an enemy into and attack him inside there. And then on the opposite side, this trigger area here is what generates the enemies inside the engine test room as well as the kitchen. So you have this button casing, and I set the logic to it, the properties, to the full 15-second delay. So you have to wait 15 seconds between uses of the rocket engine to try and defeat the enemies. And this kiln piece here makes a good piece of test equipment. These are also kiln fantasy terrains. Before we enter the kitchen, let's discuss this screenshot of the kitchen from my Star Wars Day video. This is the one side room that was actually inspired by Chapter 4 when Boba and Fennec Shan take back Slave 1. After sneaking into the palace through an access tunnel, they enter a kitchen where a multi-limbed droid holding a variety of knives is preparing food. When he sees Boba, he starts spinning the knives much like General Grievous would spin multiple lightsabers to overwhelm his opponent. Hence my little joke after Boba defeats the dual-bladed BX droid I used for the game that it was a Grievous chef. Notice that there are no decorations on the left side of the room because the bounding boxes wouldn't allow me to add decorations on that wall. I ended up going back and redesigning the kitchen after I had completed my video so that I could place decorations on all of the walls. Rather than trying to record another playthrough, which took many attempts before I had the perfect playthrough that fit the story that I wanted to tell, one with a badass Boba, I elected to keep the recording that I had. So as we enter through the doorway, we'll see my redesigned kitchen, which I'm much happier with. Okay, so now we're in the redesigned kitchen. You can see I expanded out on the room a little bit. And we have these curved climbing pieces here. Doesn't really climb up to anywhere, but it's kind of fun to hang around on. And by building a new wall here, I was able to rotate the wall pieces in a manner that would allow me to add the various decorations from the interior toy box. I also added this cantina bar just because it's in theme and it looks like it's something that's kitchen-y and it's kind of fun to jump into and fly through, so a little bit of added variety. Alright, this is the final enemy. I used Ptolemy Rees from the Force Awakens playset, and that's the key card. So we have a little cutscene that shows him running away with that key card, and that's the camera there for that cutscene view. And then I use the path tool here to create path branches. So he has two possible paths that leads over here to the left hand side for a little mini boss fight. And it's not meant to be the Rancor because at this point in time Jabba's Rancor was dead, killed by Luke. So that if you defeat that's a fixer enemy there, or the Rebuker. I think I have the fixer on the other side. So I think this side here was the Rebuker. And then Ptolemy can also go here to the right, couple different paths that he can take just to mix it up a little bit. So the end game isn't quite always the same. He'll go either one of those two paths to the left and your mini boss will be the Rebuker, or one of these two paths to the right and you get the mini boss here is the fixer. Same result when you defeat the mini bosses on either side. You get a key card collectible, and either of those key card collectibles, just one of them will enable the logic to give a little cutscene to show that the terminal is now activated. And you come back into the hangar here, and Boba can slice the terminal in Star Wars vernacular, and that then will remove the force field here, as well as open the button casing to open the hangar door. So gone ahead and done that, hacked the terminal, and do a little test flight here. And you can see the hangar's designed big enough to fly into. It was still a tight space for Slave 1 to fit in. We have the trigger area here that gives us our little final fanfare musical score and the mission success, saying that the game has been completed. So there's enough space to test your flying skills and maneuver around through the canyon there, as well as come in and try and maneuver carefully and make a nice soft landing back in the middle of the hangar. So I had that design criterion in mind, that the hangar would be big enough to fly inside of. Alright, last thing I'll discuss here before signing off is these vaulted pieces here. So like I said, there was some small arch openings on the floor level and the larger arch openings above, which I connected to the rooms. So I didn't do anything with this area, but you know, if you're creating your own toy box, there's a lot of different games you could play in here. You could hide collectibles, you could have enemies come running out of there. I didn't do any of that because I was running a little short on memory and I wanted the game to run smoothly. It wasn't really necessary for the story I was trying to tell as well, but those areas are there to expand on or do things with for gameplay. So a lot of exciting opportunity that you can use this hangar build for. So once again, thanks for watching. It's been a fun toy box to share with you, and everybody have a great day.
I don't trust idealists.